I graduated in 1993 from NUS Chemistry Honours. So Chemist as a background, I have also a chartered chemist with Royal Society of Chemistry, MBA in the Singapore Institute of Management, SIM, and also a graduate diploma in sustainable manufacturing. Yeah. So when I started my career, it was a lot focusing on technical. So introducing, so like when I was in production chemist, introducing new process to the plant, troubleshooting the process, and even when I was in technical development, working with some of the R&D chemists back in the UK to transfer processes to the site, or even working with suppliers to suppliers raw materials or intermediates to solve some of the technical problems. And as I progress through my career, then it becomes less technical, more strategic for the site, and more people management. So in the beginning, it was very focused on your role, right? So if you are a production chemist in one production building, then you are just doing the things that is in one production building. Yeah, you don't really look at what is required for the entire site, the implication for the entire. So as I progress, then you get a more strategic view, and things that you have to look at it. It's not just for that building, but for the entire site. What can we do to improve things? What's the implications, etc. So it becomes more strategic in nature. But also, I think it's also that it also becomes that when I progress, because of the responsibility, there will be more people reporting to me. Then also a bit about people management as well. I think the role hasn't changed a lot, but of course, you say specific processes and all that. Yes, it may have changed. Okay, maybe instead of using this particular process, maybe things will change. But I think the more and more of the processes that maybe in the past, pharmaceuticals have been more focused on the big volume products, blockbuster products. I think the trend now is going to more smaller volume products, more targeted approach. But the actual process itself, I don't think it changed a lot. That means as a role as a chemist, is still to troubleshoot the process. Most of the processes, in fact all the process on site is still organic chemistry. Yeah, so it's still pretty standard lah. Okay, even if we don't use this reaction, not so coupling as elder reaction or whatever. Yeah, but it's still organic chemistry, or hydrogenation, etc. Still organic chemistry. The analytical method is still HPLC, NMR, GC, mass spec, and all that. So I don't think that has changed a lot. But I think as a trend in terms of the manufacturing is to go towards more targeted molecule, smaller volume, and now there's also more increasing focus on biopharmaceuticals. That means large molecules. So where we are making here are mainly small molecules. Large molecules like your proteins, etc., are much larger molecules. So your biologics, your biotech, etc., those are more biopharmaceuticals. And even for chemical process that we make on site, in order for GSK to be more carbon footprint, to improve the carbon footprint, we're also looking at more biotransformation. So I'll give an example. Like amoxicillin, we use chemical synthesis, chemical transformation. We use cryogenic reactions, use a lot of solvents, lots of cooling, so we use a lot of electricity, etc. We are now trying to move towards biotransformation. We use enzymes. So we use water, use at room temperature. Then that will be more carbon friendly compared to chemical transformation. So that's the trend. But in terms of the roles of a chemist, I don't think it has changed a lot through the years. As a chemist and as a chemical engineer, you are the most privileged to work in the pharmaceutical industry, because you can do a lot of roles. As just give you an indication, we have chemists working in production. We have chemists working definitely in laboratories, whether it's analytical lab testing, technical development. We have chemists working in regulatory. So when you file the drug, regulatory, yeah, so filing of the drugs, liaising with regulatory authorities. We have chemists working in validation, so validation of processes, validation of equipment, and so that's some of the technical roles. But we also have chemists working in the non-technical roles. Of course, chemists working in operation excellence, even in my department. So it's a bit more technical. But even for non-technical, we have chemists working in HR, planning and logistics as well. So, and it's the same for chemical engineering as well. Yeah. So, but chemical engineering maybe is a bit different in that sense that they are more equipment based. So because most of the processes are organic chemistry, so the chemist usually looks after the process itself, so troubleshooting the process. In terms of the equipment and all that, then we may require help from the chemical engineers or the mechanical engineers. But there are also chemical engineers that looks after the process. So it's a bit grey in that sense, but so to answer your question, how has chemistry helped me? I think it's definitely helped me to understand the processes, so understanding the technical aspects of the processes, understanding how to troubleshoot. I think the rigor in the science training that's given in NUS or NTU would have helped you in that regard. So I think that was useful. And even when I'm working in operational excellence and all that, that continued to help me to understand some of the issues that's happening on the plant as well. Whether you want to pursue further education or not, I think you have to ask yourself, what do you want? Okay, I think there's no right or wrong, so it depends on where your interest is. So if your interest is more about doing research, more about maybe lecturing, yeah, so there may be merits to continue a further education. And then then you might work, because that will stand you on good grounding, to work in as a R&D chemist or a lecturer, maybe in polys or even in NUS or NTU, whatever. But if your interest is more on manufacturing, more about, I don't know, sales or whatever, then you have to ask yourself whether pursuing a master degree or a PhD degree will really help you in that regard. As far as I know, it may not help you that much. Certainly for research, as a researcher, that would definitely help you, pursuing a postgraduate studies. But for others, it may not help, right? Then the question then is that, okay, do I do MBA and all that, which is totally different from science, yeah. Then it also depends on where you are and what you want to do, right? So some people could be very happy doing technical roles, so doing management roles, managing people, looking at more strategic things may not be what they want, because they are very happy solving technical problems, looking at technical challenges rather than people, rather than looking at the whole site and all that. Then doing an MBA may not be that useful. But if you have a flair for, want to manage people, wanted to look at taking things more strategic view. Then having an MBA to understand the different aspects of the business may be useful. So I'm not sure what is the science education right now, but when I was in NUS, there's not a lot of modules that you can take in terms of the business. So definitely studying an MBA to understand finance, to understand law, intellectual property, contracts, etc., etc. Yeah, definitely will help you to understand the business better than maybe now the education is different. So if you have modules that you are taking to understand some of it, then maybe you don't need to do a MBA. Yeah. So in the end, you have to ask yourself what you want, not be guided by whether it is the trend is everybody doing this, let's do that. Yeah, because no point doing something, in the end you are not happy, and if you are not happy, you abandon it, then it's a waste of your effort. So you do it, right? Let's say you pursue postgraduate for, I don't know, 4 years to get a PhD or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, it looks very good in your title, yeah, but it doesn't help you in your whatever you work. So then the question is, could that 4 years spent in getting a PhD better spent in getting a PhD, or actually the 4 years better spent in getting an experience? Your experience in your working life or whatever. So in the end, depends on what you want. Certainly for GSK, we are hiring people. Yeah, in fact, we are hiring quite a lot of people, and we have been. I'm not sure whether you've gone for some of our career fairs and talks. I think some of my managers has been going down to talk to students, to NTU, NUS, and trying to recruit people, both chemists, chemical engineers, etc. So we are expanding. For other companies in the pharmaceutical, I'm not sure what's their situation like, but for us, we are expanding because just last year we introduced 4 new products on site, which then registered, so our operations become more complex, more volumes, so we are struggling to cope with the complexity and the volumes. So we are hiring people to help to look at how we can streamline our processes to meet the volumes. Yeah. So I think you have a good prospect, certainly for a chemist, right, joining a pharmaceutical industry, because of the many areas which are highlighted area you can go to. I think it's a good industry to go to, and it's not just in GSK that chemists move. Only GSK chemists can move to all these areas. Certainly in when I was in Schering-Plough, and I know from Pfizer, etc., it's the same. So chemists can move to many areas. So I think it's a good industry to go to, versus for some industry, chemist is mainly limited to the laboratory, right? So it's only analytical testing, and if you are not analytical testing, there's no other place you can go to. Whereas in the pharmaceutical, you can at least work in the plant, you can work in operational excellence, you can work in validation, regulatory, all sorts of technical roles. Yeah. I think the work we're doing, I think is certainly very significant, because I told you we're struggling to meet volumes. And one of my role in operational excellence, I told you, is about business improvement, right? Lean manufacturing, how can I improve? So is to meet the volume. Not so much the sense that at the end of the day, okay, the company make more money, which certainly does because we make the volume, but I think it's the thing that will benefit the patients, right? Because when the volume increases and we can't meet the volume, it's not just about, okay, we make less money and all that, but we could have made more. But it is the impact on patients where patients can't receive our drugs. So, for example, we have one of our cancer drugs that we make on site. where the volume has gone up very high, and we struggle to meet the volume. So the work that I'm doing with some of my team, certainly with production as well, where we have now increased the throughput such that patients now can get our drugs, so patients don't die. Sometimes it's very easy to say, okay, you just make white powder, and we don't really see the impact, right? Yeah, so you make a bit less, doesn't matter, alright? Make a bit less, so company make a bit less money, okay? But the impact is someone down the line doesn't have the drug to treat their disease, and as a consequence suffer, and in adverse situation may die. So I think that's the impact. I think at the end of the day, what you have to think, what do you want first? Yeah, what do you want first in terms of your career? There is no point going to a job, let's say, pays very well, right? And there are a lot of good paying jobs, so maybe you can get in, you can secure a position in that company that pays very well, but you don't like it, right? You don't like it. So you go there, you work, maybe after 3 years, 2 years, whatever, you find that you're very frustrated and you want to get out of it, right? So you get out of it. You go to another industry, another position where you are a bit happier. But you wasted that 2 to 3 years working job. Yeah, of course you get a lot of money in that sense, but the experience that you gain may not be totally relevant to your new career. So if you had go to a career where something that you like and you want to pursue, you would have built your experience from there. And that, I think, would be more valuable. Because at the end of the day, a lot of what differentiates from, let's say both of you have the same education, 2 candidates, same education. What would be the differentiator besides your behaviors and attitudes and so on? It's also your experience. Right? So if you have a relevant experience and all that, definitely will stand you in a better state than compared to someone who doesn't have. So it's then to see what is it that you want.